Which job has, hands down, the worst impact on mental health? The FBI evidence sifters in child sex cases. Weeks of freeze-framing children's faces during abuse videos and matching them to databases to identify the kids against other videos, missing children, etc. Then putting it all in a timeline for prosecutors. I knew someone whose spouse worked in that area. Apparently they are managed to spend a lot of time on the job to maintaining their mental health. Like they have days where they'll do outdoor activities and such. Hopefully that helps them, because that's a fucking brutal job. I met someone who works in that division of the NCMEC. They're pretty much forced to take mental health days every month and follow with the organization's provided psychiatrist or psychologist. My wife has been a child exploitation investigator for going on 15 years. She has worked with pretty much every acronym you can think of. She has a great way of compartmentalizing work versus life. I also feel that once she started looking at it more from a saving children's lives rather than a job aspect, it no longer affected her the same. Just my assessment. As for therapist, yes, she is required to see one. Not as often as some have said here. And I've never heard of her doing outdoor activities with the group, other than all of us going out for drinks. I always submit this story when this issue comes up, out of respect for this guy. I'm an older dude, and back in the day, I had a role to play in one of these prosecutions. Of a kiddie porn distributor. Now, historically, kiddie porn had been enforced by USPS postal inspectors. Because, historically, distribution had been through the mail. When we were doing our case, I met the postal inspector who would be our witness. For 20 plus years, that's what this dude had done, testified in kiddie porn cases. Among the things you have to prove, with respect to each image, is that the person depicted was under 18 when the picture was taken. This dude was the one who was doing to do that for us. We had all the images collected in a 5-inch thick 3-ring binder. You could open to any page, and he'd name the person depicted, tell you approximately the date the picture was taken, and tell you how old that person was on that date. For many of the victims, our witness knew that because he had met them. Talked to them about the images, enlisted their help in prosecuting, in general, not on a case-by-case basis, and convinced them to share with him what had to be, in every case, horrifying experiences. And he remembered them all. Every story, every relative with a smile and a candy bar. He knew all the stories by heart. And then, on a monthly basis, he would fly to some place and give that testimony. Recount the stories for the jury. Recount his meetings with the victims. He would be there so that they didn't have to be. Anytime people talk about heroes they've met, I remember this guy. Just the most normal, average, mild-mannered guy you'd ever meet. And he spent at least half his working life doing this. I have a friend whose other half works for a government agency fighting people trafficking in the UK. He told me about a case so unbelievably sickening I will never ever repeat what I heard to another person. It was genuinely one of those how on earth could one person do this to another person in moments. My dad is an oncologist. He handles it well, but that has to be up there. Every time you meet a new patient it's during one of the worst, if not the worst, time of their lives. And it's up to you to break it to them, their families, if the toxic treatment you have been administering is working or if they should give up hope and get their affairs in order. On top of that you have them attending appointments telling you the kind of toll the cancer is taking on their marriage, so many people walk away from their beloved partner of 30 years rather than support them through this, not to mention their finances. I am still so unbelievably grateful to the oncologist who helped my father understand he was terminal. My dad was endlessly optimistic, religious, and not particularly intelligent. Sorry, Dad. When his original oncologist tried to tell him he was terminal, he refused to give up hope. It was when he was hospitalized due to complications that a resident oncologist at the hospital came and sat with him for a good long time and finally got him to understand that it was time to let go of that belief he might get better. I can't imagine what it does to a person to sit and make sure that someone understands there is no hope left in the world for them. I'm so grateful people like that exist, but it definitely couldn't be me. Fucking hell, that is a weird, dark, unnecessary skill set to have in our society. My oncologist. Onk, you have the same cancer that Steve Jobs had. Me, without the 8 years of stupidity. Onk, exactly. I now have a 9-inch scar instead of a 7 centimeters tumor. Humor is a must. Otherwise you go insane. Lost my 44 years old wife of 25 years to pancreatic in March. Reddit helped me decide early who I wanted to be through it all. That included being there through the whole thing. Told her every other day, I'm not going anywhere, babe. I'm right where I want to be. Having her hear my voice in her final moments was a triumph for me. So many people walk away from their beloved partner of 30 years rather than support them through this. So many people walk away from their beloved partner of 30 years rather than support them through this. I had an uncle do this to an aunt. She was diagnosed with cervical cancer, and when it got to the point she was bedbound, he left her. Luckily my cousins and hospice were able to step in and make her final days nice for her, but still shitty about my uncle. First responders will eventually watch a person die right in front of them more than likely. Definitely have seen multiple die, as well as plenty of already dead, brains on walls, etc. None of it was nearly as bad as responding to a dying infant then having to stand around while EMS is going through the motions for the sake of the parents. Just for clarification, no judgment here, just making sure I understand you correctly. You're saying sometimes EMTs know an infant has died, or is in the process of dying, and there's nothing the EMTs can do, so they go through the motions, or perform life-saving measures just so the parents see the EMTs tried something, rather than just state the inevitable if the child has died is going to die. With children especially, you have to try interventions. I am an ER nurse and I had a young child less than 2 years old who drowned and was suspected to have been in the pool for approx 2 hours. The child was cold as ice, but we still have to do all the things. My brother drowned. CPR was tried at the scene and he was brought to the hospital before he was declared dead. Watching them do CPR while my mom screamed was horrible, but of course I'm glad they at least tried. He hadn't been in the water for anywhere near 2 hours though. That must be so hard for y'all as well. I really appreciate the EMTs and nurses who have to deal with this stuff. It's not the worst, see, first responders and, apparently, veterinarians, but being an inner-city public school teacher broke me. Look, again, not as bad as those others, but I've seen and read enough that my decade in has been enough. I've had students murdered, one kid was shot for $12 worth of weed. I also taught the murderer. I've called DCS on many parents because my student came in beaten or starving. I paid for one of my students' lunches because she was pregnant and couldn't afford school lunch, seen brutal fights that have ended with hospitalization and have also been hospitalized due to breaking up fights. You watch brilliant students discover drugs and overdose, you see kids with bright futures get pregnant and refuse to go to college because they will be supported by the baby's father who skipped town the day she gave birth, and you see kids fall through the cracks in the system to never be seen again. I've also reported 2 fucking pervert teachers, one didn't have enough evidence but he was still let go while the other currently enjoys prison. My first year, a few of us teachers started a club that would have lock INS at the school because some of the kids needed a place to get food, get clean, and be away from the danger of home. I've never played more Monopoly in my life or eaten more Papa John's, and I really didn't like doing it, but it was worth it at graduation when one of my students that never missed club thanked me because it was the one night her mom's boyfriend couldn't get her. I still cry about it. I'm crying now. There were amazing positives. I have a few students that are now doctors that were once told that they would never graduate. Getting kids who couldn't read at the beginning of their freshman year to graduate with a full ride to college is a feeling that I can't really compare to anything. But, at the end of the day, the lows are too low. I left the first school that I taught at 6 years ago because we had an incident that definitely wasn't a school shooting that failed only because the kid turned the corner directly into our school officer and, out of fear, the kid killed himself instead of the kids on his list. I should have left then, but I thought it would get better, that I could handle it all. I can't. I'm tired. Update, this got bigger than I thought possible. Thank you all for reaching out. I've been trying to interact and comment on all of the posts. First things first, you do not need to thank me. I'm a singular voice in a sea of Title I teachers and you can find them also in the comments. We all have stories like this, both incredibly positive and less so. To the people wanting updates, the girl who I helped feed is doing well and has 2 beautiful kids. I haven't heard from the girl in club and I hope she has found peace. Also, I've been trying to stay vague enough that I couldn't really be ID'd, but I have had one former student DM me and they got my name right. If you are curious if I taught you, DM me and I can tell you if I did or not. Also, my school was in the rural Midwest. This seems to be very important for a few people. That was a roller coaster of a story. Bloody hell. First responder. 100%. I agree. I'm 23. Started fire and EMS at 18. PTSD at 19. Alcoholic at 20. I'm 14 days sober right now at 23. Doing much better, but the job genuinely changes you as a person. Exhausting hours, mediocre pay, and dealing with bad calls takes a toll on you. To this day, the worst thing I've ever seen is my paycheck though. Crime scene cleanup. Entire families murder-suicide. Seeing dead babies would wreck me. The smells. Bodies turned to soup, brains splattered, blood, lots of blood, feces, and urine, pets taking a chomp because they haven't been fed. Having to pull all carpet, pad and scrubbing sub-floors. Extracting body juices. High probability of bio-illnesses, biohazards, bloody airborne pathogens. 100% will affect a sane person. One of my friends worked in a morgue. Not so recently deceased comes in with his cat who had been eating him while trapped in the house for however long before being found. She adopted the cat and named him Hannibal. Any job where every day you are constantly being exposed to other people's trauma. Second-hand trauma day in and day out wears on mental health. Veterinarians have some of the highest rates of suicide. I'm going with that. It's very tough when they put a pet to sleep. I always thought it's cool to be a vet, until I met my husband. My vet cried with me when we put my cat to sleep. I was touched, but it was a bit of a surprise since I was apparently the second euthanasia appointment of the day. What I hear from vets is that the people are the worst part of the job. Seeing evidence of neglect or abuse, clients refusing to pay for necessary medical interventions, etc. Watching animals suffering is hard enough, but knowing you, or the owner, could do something about it but can't won't has to be rough. I have a friend who works for CPS. You wouldn't believe the number of times she's tried to get a child taken out of a horribly abusive home. Clear physical evidence of sexual abuse, etc. But the case falls through because the police won't provide a detective who is good with children, then the child won't repeat accusations for official testimony. It's got to be up there with first responders. Edit. Thank you everyone for the kind words. I don't know if it's the worst, but maybe. I'm a retired detective. In the latter part of my career, I was tasked with running our Special Investigations Unit. One of our responsibilities was computer crimes. 95% of those were child sexual abuse media investigations, child porn to the lay person. I trained and got certified in computer forensics. As a result, I spent many, many hours poring through thousands upon thousands of child sexual abuse images and videos. The seething, white rage that would build up inside of me would necessitate an occasional break to go punch a wall or other inanimate object. The other detectives outside of our enclosed lab got used to the occasional outbursts by my other computer forensic examiners and me. Most of the time I could endure it, but sometimes certain acts or victims would trigger rage in me that still affects me to this day. This in spite of the mandatory and regular therapy for our examiners that was established by policy. There is no redemption for people who abuse children. My doesn't deserve top 10, but I worked at an payday loans place for a few months. If that didn't feel like legally working for the devil, I don't know what does. There are people who have to watch alleged instances of child porn to confirm or deny whether or not the allegations are true, and then testify in court. Presumably, they are not a Dexter scenario where a pedophile would watch it and be fine with it. It's a human being who would be repulsed by such depravity and evil. Social work is challenging. Thank you to all of our first responders around the world. I honestly never knew. Psychiatric nurse in a psychiatric inpatient hospital. In a state prison. Dealing with death row inmates.